13th Executive Committee meeting to order. First, I'd like to ask our interpreters to explain how to access interpretation. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Announcement from the interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on interpretation icon, row, and select English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish slow in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation if you are in the meeting room. Please check out headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer el uso del servicio de interpretación, favor desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparece el control. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region have historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay Digueño, the Luceño, the Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Michael has already confirmed quorum. Let's begin with non-agenda public comment. Michael?
Yes. As a reminder, no comments shall use loud, threatening, profane, or abusive language that disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting. Disorderly conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the executive committee meeting is prohibited. Per our board policy, the amount of time allotted for each verbal public comment is determined based on the number of agenda items, the complexity of those items, and the number of persons anticipated to offer comment. This allows us to hear from as many people as possible and to complete our business while we still have a quorum. Based on those factors, the chair has determined that today's meeting, each member of the public will be allowed 2 minutes for their comments. We have 4 in-person public comments, and that is first up with Purita Javier, followed by Cesar Javier. And while they make their way, as a reminder, executive committee, we do not use the voting pads. So please just go ahead and raise your hands if and when you'd like to speak. But first up, Purita Javier.
All right, go. Go.
Anyone? Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. APCO meeting. We began our war, air pollution, curious, and at first the home business, non-metallic mineral product manufacturing, also known as ceramics manufacturing and kiln operation next door, 25 feet from our home, a neighborhood dedicated as residential zone committee. It has been operating since 1984, owned by the graduate of the Mesa College Ceramics Vocational Program and became a member of the San Diego Pottery Guild based in Balboa Park in 1992. The facility built composing of a work structure approximately 14 by 20, and Keln separately behind a single family house about 40 feet. The work, however, were mostly done at the garage, enclosed space, shaping and molding once ready for firing or baking. The potteries then are moved to the kiln. Science through research and study by Princeton and Baylor universities and Goshen College, including Health Bulletin by Center for Disease and Control, CDC, of 2020, confirmed that ceramics kill, emits toxicity, poison gas.
Thank you, Purita. Next is Cesar Javier, followed by allegedly Audra.
Cesar Javier. It began. This is my writing, and I cannot read it clearly. My wife had her exposure in 1997, while me, by Providence, in 2012. So from that partnership in life, we both experience the impact. I tell you, and this is the truth. Once you are at the vicinity, when the kiln is firing these molded potteries, I could estimate that one load is something like 20. You sense the fume. You know, the fume is described like tiny needles trying to pierce your respiratory gland, something. And you cough, your nose also with liquid, teary eyes, something like that. And you have to retreat because you feel dizzy. And frequent exposure to that gives you some kind of fluctuating blood pressure and irregular heart palpitation. This is the truth. And so we began to wonder how we could fight, stop, or in a diplomatic way, advise them, request them to move it in a safer place. We did it. In return, unintended consequence, I was restrained twice. Lately, effective November 21, because I played my radio, you know, when
Thank
I
you,
worked in the
Cesar. Your
backyard.
time has expired. Next is allegedly Audra, followed by Truth.
Guaranteed to uphold the free speech rights and such, but repeating the rhetoric of that there is an invasion on the border, that there's criminals on the border, that what the actions of federal government is anywhere connected with what federal law and the Constitution says. It's just repeating rhetoric.
Joe LaCava,
to inflame the conversation.
you are very dangerous to this county, to the city of San Diego, and all of the people who sit and still claim that there was no invasion on the border, that there were no criminals on the border. That is absolute bullshit. That is a lie. And you are inciting more violence with what's going on around the nation and what's planning to be happening tomorrow. You're encouraging more violence by acting like there was not an invasion on the border. Children went missing. People were trafficked. You incentivized it. Most of it was happening in the city of San Diego, which you guys tried to obfuscate and hide from the people, which is extremely dangerous when there were criminals, not only because they crossed the border illegally, but criminals. A little 5-year-old girl was raped in her home by one of these individuals that came across the border that you claim is not a criminal. And we're paying for the defense of these people. And now look at what is happening in our nation, because you guys have refused to acknowledge, to take responsibility for the complicit nature that you guys had engaged in to facilitate the invasion. And now to spin it and act like that's not what happened, but that these people are peacefully protesting ICE raids. No, they are rioting, they are looting, they are very well funded by NGOs. And what's going to happen tomorrow? I don't know. But if San Diego gets destroyed, you guys will be at fault for that, because you allowed this to happen.
Thank you, Audrey. Your time has expired. Next is Truth, followed by Paul the Bull online, and we have 4 speakers online.
Please know that tomorrow is Flag Day and no communists are ever going to control America. It doesn't matter how well funded they are. And I'm so very glad to see Ed around now. Minto, okay. Also know that while children cost us almost $7 million a year to ride public transit, our veterans don't even ride for free. I'm going to put that in perspective. Speaking of which, the Central San Diego Regional Plan Learning Session, location being in City Heights, that's an easy commute for Mid-City Can to control the narrative. I wish I had time to disrupt that one as well. After the SANDAG, I went to the grand opening of Native Star, an American Indian woman-owned business in the gas lamp. Todd Gloria failed to show up, which contributed to being an awesome event. The fresh fry bread was delicious. I even got a medicine wheel jacket pin gift from a friend. Oh, where did I put it? Right up here, little tiny thing. It represents the opposite of meetings, balanced health of spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental. Next, I want the catering at these meetings to end. The meetings now usually end at 12:30, so breakfast is just as much your guys' responsibility as it is mine. Nobody deserves to eat our tax dollars just because they're on the other side of the room, so the unequal treatment needs to end. And it's costing San Diego County residents $15 million with probably another sole source contract to fix the walls holding the tracks in Bayho that are only 5 years old and yet cracking apart. Who did that faulty job and for how much? Will that require a public records request to find out? And after having met a woman who was shocked at learning about the Otay-Mesi's border crossing and saying there must be a reason SANDAG wants to keep it secret, I request that SANDAG start better advertising this project. I'd like SANDAG to inform the public that the multi-billion-dollar debt creator OMI will be gifted to the Trump administration. And as part of active transportation, I want SANDAG to start putting money to fixing sidewalks. It's the #1 cause of lawsuits to cities. And talking about bike lanes and deaths is outrageous when looking at the sidewalks in the city of San Diego. And potholes also exist in the crosswalks. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Paul the Bold online, followed by Blair Beekman.
Good morning, Paul the Bold. Since the meeting is so short, maybe we can have a little instrumental or vocal action, song and dance, theater, Pinocchio perhaps? Moving on, Zuledson reported the last meeting on May 23rd that the Losan tracks at San Clemente, which had operated for 125 years with few closures, were in fact closed, and they have been for about 2 months, due to a landslide, and that there was also a 1,400-foot catchment wall being built there and riprap fill. Bottom line, more delay, more erosion, more cost. Hope it ends before SANDAG goes bankrupt with, quote, unanticipated repair costs. In the long run, which the board may not have considered, it may be better to have a Losan track which stays away from the erosion, from the ocean and its waves, away from the crumbling cliffs in San Clemente and the bluffs in Del Mar. The route suggested may be a bit more expensive, but it will not be subject to constant closure or repair. I favor a route up the I-5 corridor to South Oceanside, then along the rail tracks there, and up through the Duluth area without affecting the homes. It would also be better for connecting to the high-speed rail systems under construction, to LA, SF, Vegas, and Fresno. Thanks.
Next is Blair Beekman, followed by Consuelo.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks for the meeting today. I guess I wanted to weigh in a bit on the immigration issue that's going on in the protests in LA at this time. We had our own serious immigration ICE raid issues in San Diego that I think we've decided has seriously crossed the line. And that I question if in fact it was a kind of an impetus to the LA riots, because it was bad. ICE came in way over artillery, they had way too much toys basically to prove their mettle and strength. And it was just, they have a Republican administration, they are able to run roughshod at this time, and we have to really address that. I think in California, in San Diego and San Diego County, we can be addressing some very serious and important immigration laws and human rights standards that are very good. And I think we're going to have to really, use our mind to develop those best practices. And when we do, it will simply ask Trump to stop what he's doing, and I think he will listen. I think that is how we we ask Trump to stop a bit, and I think it will be effective. So good luck in working our good law systems, our systems of rule of law, because I think we're going to develop some very interesting concepts, like with data collection. I think, the current ALPR use in San Diego and their new expansion of ALPR is seriously questionable. They're taking ALPR use to their flock agencies in Georgia and sharing it everywhere. They have that ability, I think, something to that effect. We can create data collection laws to further narrow who gets the data. And that's the stuff we're going to be working on. And it's good stuff. So good luck how we can do that. I don't think the protests in San Diego County tomorrow, they're going to be that harmful. Let's base it on peace and law. Thank you.
Next is Consuelo, followed by our last public comment, Paul Jameson.
Okay, can
Go
you
ahead,
hear me?
Consuelo.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. So, okay, here we go, Consuelo here. The manipulated masses. While everyone is distracted with riots, deportations, and the endless crisis after crisis, the real agenda continues to unfold behind the curtains. This is manufactured chaos by design. Order out of chaos. That's the blueprint. Break society down, confuse the people, then rebuild it into a system of total control and dependency. And it's working because most people don't even see it. Meanwhile, this very agency has the audacity to acknowledge the land and the pain of the tribal people, speaking solemnly of persecution, abuse, and injustice. Yet, the very same abuse continues. Different costume, same system. Do they not see the homeless veterans, the mentally ill, the struggling families barely surviving under the weight of policy failure? Nope, they don't, because their real priority isn't the people. It's bike lanes, digital tracking, special elections, and projects that serve the agenda, not the people. We are being taxed, tracked, and talked down to while they waste billions on the illusion of progress. It's not just wasteful, it's reckless. And it's happening on our dime. The system was never meant to serve us. It was built to use us. And whether knowingly or not, many of you are complicit. Let me be clear. The system isn't broken, it's rigged, and the people are waking up. But to those loyal statists who believe in it and want to fix it, you don't reform a cage. You walk out of it. Keep polishing the bars if you want, but this system was never built to free you. Dream on, slave. And freedom doesn't come from your captures. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last public comment is Paul Jameson.
Yeah, this is Paul Jameson. I just wanted to quickly talk about the role of electric vehicles in SANDAG's regional transportation plan. particularly because the Trump administration revoked California's electric vehicle mandate. And it looks like the $7,500 federal EV credit is going to go away due to the Republican Congress's actions. So I just want to remind folks here that we kind of heard repeatedly from Jim Desmond and Richard Bailey, members of the SANDAG board, Republican members, that instead of funding new public transit, we should widen freeways instead, because we could plan on fleets of interconnected, automated electric vehicles that would, solve our traffic congestion problems and our greenhouse gas challenges. So it just seems there's a real disconnect between what Republicans on this board are saying about EVs and the reality that we're seeing from Republicans at the federal level. So now instead of fleets of EVs, we're just going to continue seeing polluting vehicles on California roads for many years to come. And this is kind of part of decades of promises from the auto industry and others that we could solve these congestion problems, none of which have really ever happened. So I think we should continue to look for innovative solutions to our transportation challenges. EVs can be a part of that for sure, but public transit is a proven method to get folks around inexpensively. So let's continue to plan to fund the expansion of public transit and bike lanes too. Forcing everyone to drive simply just doesn't scale in a region of 3 million people. Thank you.
That concludes our non-agenda public comment, Chair.
Very good. Any non-agenda member comments at this time? Councilmember Zito.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, apologies in advance. I'm going to depart a little bit from my swim lane, and I just have a little bit of challenge of letting go of my recent past. But just wanted to note for the leadership team that this October, if my recollection is correct, the terms for the 3 public members of the audit committee will expire, and we will be out looking for new public members. Under the current rules that exist today, one of the public members will be termed out. They won't be able to reapply. I strongly suspect another one won't reapply just because of conflicts with work. And so we may end up with 2 or 3 brand new public members. We have 2 relatively new board members, and that can lead to a suboptimal situation. So I would just encourage the board. We've had suggested recommended changes to board policy 39 sitting out there for about a year and a half. It was gone through 2 audit committees, has been also been reviewed by 2 different independent performance auditors, has passed out of a previous executive committee with the unanimous vote. So I just encourage us to bring this back, consider it. One of the things that was in those recommendations was to potentially extend the terms of the public members, and hopefully when we do that, allow for staggering as well, so we don't encounter this type of problem. And I would just encourage us to consider it. Apologies jumping ahead a little bit on the agenda, but I did notice that the July meeting is proposed to have the work plan for the audit committee. So that first meeting might be a really good time to hear it. The work plan should be a pretty quick topic. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Zito. Mario, do you have anything to add to that?
We are waiting for OIPAS coordinating with the chair. And as soon as they give us the green light, we will go and put it in the agendas.
Okay, I'll go bug the new chair then too.
That's great. All right. Okay, I see no other member comments. So to help manage our time today, we're going to begin with our reports and conclude with the consent calendar. So that means we'll start with the 2025 board retreat recap. I want to take a moment to reflect on the discussions that we had there during our retreat. I think they were quite valuable. We covered a lot of key issues from during that time, shaping our region from the draft regional plan and Transnet program to budget priorities and our role in state housing policy. We did have some pretty technical, very dense conversations this year. So I thank everybody for your engagement and patience on all of that and understanding. I especially appreciated the open and constructive dialogue that we had around governance, around transparency, and how we work together as a board. The energy in the room reflected a very strong sense that we have a shared commitment to be respectful and collaborative. As a next step from the retreat, staff will be drafting an updated code of engagement for our review. Many of you thanked staff for the reality check we heard on revenue expectations, and we will continue these discussions later this fall around project prioritization. I'm really looking forward to that conversation. There is also a recognition that this board is looking for more background and history on the items that are brought to us. I think that these are very helpful, not just for new members, but even for those of us who have been around for a while. We want to make sure that we have a deeper understanding and context for the items we're considering exciting. We've already started seeing this implemented through recent staff reports, so I want to thank staff for being so responsive so quickly. We also heard a desire for increased communications to our communities to help explain what SANDAG does, how it specifically impacts or benefits our jurisdictions, and what mandates we are required to meet because of state or federal laws. Speaking of mandates, there was strong consensus that the RENA process needs reform, and I promise you I plan to continue advocating for changes that reflect the realities that our jurisdictions are facing on the ground. As I previously mentioned, I'd also like to explore bringing the board to Sacramento to directly engage with state leaders on RENA. I wanted to thank you all for your thoughtful participation. I'm optimistic that we can achieve a lot together the rest of this year. I'd also like to remind those of you who haven't jotted it down that our 2026 retreat will be Thursday, March 19th and Friday, March 20th. So please make a note of that in your calendars if you've not already done so. So let's take public comment now, and then we'll move on to member discussion. Michael.
First public comment is Cesar Javier, followed by allegedly Audra. Just a reminder, this is on item 4.
Cesar Javier. We are watchful. We are digesting all these informations, inputs, product of philosophers, thinkers. Chairmanship is alive. Thank you, Mom Chair. Thank you, Mario. We learn from this. As we attend other meetings in the region, we could comparatively say, you're on top. SANDAG is on top. And Mayor Duncan is a witness to this. We attended the governing board meeting on the APCD's meeting, and we see the inferiority compared to SANDAG's vision and rule making, rule implementing. It's purely a cover-up of what I call as corruption. Mayor Duncan, before his senses, witnessed the ineptness of leadership on the premier guardian of the vital, #1 vital survival for human, clean air. I say this because the focus now is human survivals, San Diegan's future. We will be watchful. Mom Chair, Sir Mario.
Thank you, Cesar. Your time has expired. Next is allegedly Audra, followed by Truth.
And just as a reminder to our speakers, this is on the item of the board retreat.
I gotcha. But before that, I'd like to say, Blair, look into the Global Compact for Migration, that raid that was on that restaurant in South Park. They had fake visas, so they're acting fraudulently. Just, it's crazy, the stuff that's spun. But it's going to put us in a nice digital city, a digital prison, a surveillance state. So good for you guys. Anywho, yes, so that'll be interesting. How much is it going to cost us to send you guys to Sacramento? And are you really going to change anything? Because the whole housing thing is a huge racket. And, you know, I would encourage you guys to do your own research. Don't just get information handed to you and parrot it back to the people like it's all truthful. Because if you really did some research, you would see that everything that you're doing is coming down from the United Nations. And it is a plan to enslave the people. And you're doing exactly what that plan is. And thank God that credit for EVs is gone, because they're the polluters. Like, just everything you guys do, it's inverted. So if people just understand that when they're listening to you, that everything that you're saying is upside down, inside out. All they got to do is flip it back over and see what's actually going on. And it's sad because you guys get paid to do it. We literally pay you to enslave us. But at the same time, you're enslaving yourselves. And you don't even realize it. You like think that you're going to save the planet here. And you care more about the planet than you do about people's lives, right, Joe LaCava? Because we had a woman die in Tent City on Monday. It was Tammy Jackson, 37-year-old mother whose daughter will never see her again. Right, because we're doing a really good job for these people. Yeah, and I had Stephen Whitburn laughing at me while she was dying. It was very interesting. So that's the kind of stuff that takes place in this county. And that's why you guys can't be trusted, because you don't make people's lives better and you spend our money to pretty much put us in a prison cell. And everybody can walk out of it. It's their choice.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Truth, followed by Paul the Bold online.
All right, Lisa, your report was actually better than the retreat. The retreat planning by Intesa Communications wasted over $30,000. Was SANDAG staff not capable of planning anything? Why did SANDAG rent audio and video equipment for $4,449 rather than rent a van and throw it in? Why was it necessary that 9 hotel rooms were rented for Lisa, Minto, Joe, Luz, Allison, Joel, and Carolina, costing us $14,583 with $189 in parking? Why couldn't you guys drive home like the rest of us? SANDAG failed to provide a shuttle to carpool everyone to the retreat location. The meeting was delayed by 1 hour and 3 minutes because certain people were either late or no-showed. All we were offered for attending was a cheeseless breakfast and a lettuce lunch. I did grab a giant trail mix bag, a bag of popcorn, and two full candy bars provided by the hotel. I don't eat junk candy. Either a real meal should have been provided or a heads up that if you want to stay for the whole meeting, you're going to have to starve till you look like Lisa Hebner in need of timeless donuts. I want no more retreats outside of this brand new expensive building ever again. It is not fiscally responsible to waste $50,000 on 2 meetings when these meetings average only $500 each. That means it was 100 times the cost required. And although there was some good discussion, it was mostly just cities whining about RENA. Why are the RENA housing quotas SANDAG's #1 area of interest? That's a rhetorical question. But why don't you guys care about transportation? Why do you insist on using SANDAG as your advocation agency? Isn't that what Cal Cities is for? Or the attorneys some cities pay for? All rhetorical. But if only you guys would show the same interest towards all of the transportation issues, as well as your own failed political parties that led us here, the state wouldn't even have destructive laws for you guys to discuss. Imagine that. So I repeat again, the retreat itself is a sign that the culture still needs work. I do look forward to the Code of Civil Engagement, and I expect it to include a discussion on phone use during meetings, which is a chronic problem I continue to witness. Thank you.
Next is Paul the Bold online, followed by Blair Beekman.
Hey, Paul the Bold again. I'm glad the chairs are providing an official report, which will confirm or deny all the rumors, like what I said about the May 1st meeting. I see that some members could not make the retreat meetings for an hour after the start time, which is a sad testament to the state of our transportation system, it seems. So what are you doing to fix this? Please let me know here, right now, in the report. In fact, the meeting minutes were already approved last meeting, so I hope they weren't wrong. And I hope you focused on the fraud and sole source and why there are continued negative audits, which is disgusting, and the waste of funds on a fancy hotel where the meeting didn't even start on time. By the way, I'm glad that EVs were limited by the administration, the Trump administration. Less wildfires, less severe accidents. The trade-off for a tiny decarbonization improvement is not worth it. Why don't we just go biodiesel instead of these silly EVs? Thanks.
Next is Blair Beekman, followed by Consuelo.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Yeah, thanks a lot for this item and for the words of staff, or not staff, but I don't know what to call her at this moment, President, Chief, for her words, Board President, on this item. RENA is an important matter to me. I'm learning in how it can become more flexible and work in a quicker fashion in the future. You know, and I think that to me is the important goal of how we develop the future of RENA. And I hope that, yeah, I hope that's what you'll be considering, how we can make choices sooner. I mean, we're in like these 5 to 10 year cycles, it seems like, where, you know, we compare it down to 1 or 2 years, or I don't know, even less, you know. I guess that's my basic understanding of it. I think mixed income, it's kind of like supposed to be like more phased into our lives by 2029. I hope that can be a major talking point to help the ideas of flexibility and choices for RENA and how it can build affordable housing sooner. Building affordable housing, that's what's key. That's what's missing, and that's what's stiff and we can't do more of and better of. So good luck in those efforts. In building affordable housing in a sooner amount of time. And I think mixed income can help a lot in how you figure out your RENA planning for the future. With that all said, I wanted to quickly offer rule of law to me is rule of law, a better set of principles based on human rights and civil protections and civil rights, and not just law enforcement. And that's what California is good at. I think we're going to do some amazing good work. And to DRA, the recent raids in San Diego, there may have been expired visas. It was the way they came in. That's what we need to seriously address and ask to stop. There are much better ways to work, that we have good rules of law that can do that, humanistic and with civil rights and civil protections as a part of the process. Thank you.
And our last public comment is by Consuelo. Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, what's the point of these retreats really? I mean, to brainstorm more ways to be wasteful with our money, and it's just disgusting. It really is. So yeah, this agency is the very definition of bloated and reckless. It funnels millions into special elections, empty PR campaigns, endless studies and fantasy infrastructures that nobody asked for. You prioritize bike lanes over broken lives, surveillance over real solutions, and you call that progress. So let's be honest, SANDAG shouldn't even exist. It's it's hijacking the future of our region under the guise of sustainability, equity, when all it really is doing is enabling the rollout of the UN agenda and driving working people, hardworking people, deeper into debt and dependency. You're not planning for us, you're planning over us. Public sees it, they're waking up, and the days of quietly letting you all burn through our futures are numbered.
And Isabel, are you there?
I said I'm done.
Oh, okay, then. Okay, that concludes our public comment on this item, Chair.
Okay, thanks so much. Any member comments on the retreat item?
Just a quick question,
Go
Chair.
ahead,
I was unable to go, and I can certainly ask my council member. I don't want to take up a bunch of time. But just real briefly, could you tell me what is the code of engagement where that's being worked on that's going to come back?
We had an item a couple of retreats ago where we worked on a number of statements. And so I can't remember the details of when that occurred, but that will be coming back to us. It's basically just some statements that we would agree with. It's kind of like findings.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering if it was addressing a problem that I didn't know about, but I'll look forward to seeing it.
It was on this agenda as a response to the culture report from the independent auditor. And so if you recall, there was some discussion, which you, I think, disagree with some of the findings, that the board didn't rate too well. And so we're looking at that and addressing that. And we'll have that item, we can discuss it and
I
see how
appreciate
far we go.
that. I do recall that back and forth, and I thought it was interesting. After the meeting, I looked at it, and the big thing we were having the back and forth on only had a 5% response rate from staff, actually.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure, very good. Okay, if no further discussion, that was an information item, so we'll now move to the legislative status report. We have Ryan Williams and Jose Alvarez and Hector Venegas.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Ryan Williams, Government Relations. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this month's federal legislative update. To begin with, there are promising signs from the U.S. Department of Transportation on the administration of previously awarded federal grants. After a months-long pause that raised concerns among grant recipients across the country, the department has now executed over 1,000 grants in the past 2 months, representing about $10 billion. This includes more than 500 announced just this week. While the backlog isn't fully cleared, this renewed activity offers encouraging momentum for SANDAG and other agencies nationwide as we await access to critical federal funds. Moving on to the President's fiscal year 2026 budget proposal, which was released at the end of May, the administration requested $147.1 billion for the U.S. Department of Transportation. This includes modest but meaningful increases of 2.5% for highways, 2% for passenger and freight rail, and 1.5% for transit, signaling continued federal investment across key infrastructure programs. Following the release of the President's budget, the FY26 appropriations process has now commenced in Congress, where ultimate funding decisions will be made. In other significant developments, yesterday, President Trump signed congressional resolutions revoking California's authority to set its own vehicle emission standards, an authority the state has held for decades through waivers granted under the Clean Air Act. The action creates legal and regulatory uncertainty around California's electric vehicle mandate, which has also been adopted by more than a dozen states other than ours. Legal challenges are already underway, and we'll continue to monitor the issue closely and keep you informed. Environmental permitting has been another area of increased federal activity recently, with several developments that could impact delivery here for SANDAG. A recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling narrowed the scope of environmental reviews required under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, limiting them to direct project impacts and providing federal agencies with greater discretion in how reviews are conducted. In parallel, the White House has launched a permitting modernization initiative focused on technology improvements, and Congress is advancing bipartisan legislation aimed at improving interagency coordination and establishing more consistent permitting timelines. Together, these actions signal a potential shift toward a more streamlined federal permitting framework. Finally, both chambers of Congress have actively begun work on the next surface transportation reauthorization bill. This legislation will serve as the federal government's 5-year blueprint for funding and shaping the nation's transportation system. As part of that process, SANDAG has been engaging with members of Congress and key committees to share the region's priorities. Our recommendations, guided by the board-approved legislative program, focus on securing long-term predictable funding, advancing regional mobility, and streamlining project delivery, as just discussed. We will continue working closely with our federal delegation and administration officials to ensure our priorities are well represented. And with that, I will turn it over to Hector for the border update.
Thank you, Ryan, and good morning, Madam Chair Hibner and members of the committee. I will begin my report by recognizing the passing of Chairman Bo Massetti of the Rincon Band of Luiseño Indians on May 1st. As our CEO, Mario Orso, said, Chairman Massetti was a foundational leader in our region, as he helped to establish the Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association and play a key role in launching SANDAG's tribal consultation program more than 20 years ago. His legacy will be deeply felt for years to come. Also noted in the report that was included in your agenda, the Viejas Band of Kumeyaay Indians, in partnership with the Pala Band of Mission Indians, was recently awarded a community air grant from CARB, the California Air Resources Board. The $357,000 grant will fund air pollution sensors and technical training to help strengthen local air monitoring capacity and environmental health in tribal communities. and also now turning on the interregional matters. After months of emergency, repairs due to erosion and landslide in Orange County, the Orange County Transportation Authority, OCTA, restored full passenger rail service on the Lausanne corridor this past Saturday, June 7th. This includes both services, Metrolink and Amtrak's Pacific Surfliner. OCTA is also advancing long-term efforts, including permitting, streamlining, and environmental studies to ensure long-term safety and resilience of the corridor. Now looking south of the border, the Honorable Ronald Johnson was confirmed as the U.S. Ambassador to Mexico and is now officially in Mexico City. With his background in the military and intelligence community, Ambassador Johnson brings strong diplomatic and security credentials to this key cross-border partnership. Here, locally, the Mexican Consulate General in San Diego has opened Ventana a Mexico, which is a rotating tourist showcase designed to promote cross-border travel and cultural exchange. And this is relevant because this initiative comes as the region prepares for a major global event, including the 2026 FIFA World Cup and the 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. Also, as noted in your report, Mexico's Federal Water Agency, known as CONAGUA or CNA, announced that construction of the Rosarito desalination plant will begin in September, which is ahead of schedule. While this represents a significant investment in regional water resilience, questions remain about environmental impacts and how the plant's output will be treated and allocated. And before I conclude my report, just a quick note to share. Earlier this week, the U.S.-Mexico Binational Group on Bridges and Border Crossings held its binational meeting in Mexico City, led by the U.S. Department of State and Mexico's Ministry of Foreign Relations. SANDAG was represented with a delegation that participated in meetings with officials from both sides. And this concludes my report, and I will pass the mic to Jose, my colleague, to provide the state report.
Good morning, Chair, committee members. I have a couple items for you today. First, I'll be providing an update on the state budget, and then we have two recommended positions on Senate Bill 71, which we're recommending a support position for, and Senate Bill 79, which we are recommending a opposed unless amended position. Both bills are authored by Senator Scott Wiener from San Francisco. On the budget front, this Monday, the legislature released its version of the 2025-26 state budget to close an estimated $12 billion deficit. The budget bill, which is Senate Bill 101, is currently being considered by the Assembly as we speak. Once it receives a vote and it passes, it will move on to the Senate and eventually to the governor's desk, which he will have 12 days to sign. Similar to previous year, this is expected to be a placeholder budget bill with ongoing negotiations between the governor and the legislature to take place over the coming months before the legislature adjourns on September 12th. This will result in subsequent budget trailer bills within the coming months, also revisions to the main budget bill, and in certain cases, standalone policy bills. Differing from the governor's May revise, the legislature's budget leans heavily on borrowing from other state funds rather than making deep cuts to social services like Medi-Cal as proposed by the governor. I'd like to highlight a few key items from this budget that are particularly of interest to SANDAG. First, there's some good news on transit funding. Earlier in his May revise, the governor proposed cutting $1.1 billion from transit programs funded by the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. This is the cap and trade money that the state brings in every year. The idea was to shift a lot of that funding, approximately $1.5 billion, to CAL FIRE. That proposed cut put some of the funding SANDAG and NCTD had already been awarded through the Transit Intercity Rail Capital Program, especially funds that go to a lot of low-end projects. At serious risk. In response, SANDAG began advocacy efforts alongside stakeholders to highlight the importance of these funds, and we're glad to see that the legislature decided to protect these important investments. It's also worth noting that the legislature's budget includes up to $750 million in emergency loans to help Bay Area transit agencies handle their fiscal cliffs. On the housing side, there is no new funding for REAP 2.0, but we are continuing to push a 12-month extension on the spending deadline for the funds that have already been awarded. And as a reminder, that includes over $10 million that SANDAG has allocated to local governments in our region to advance housing development and housing plans. Moving on to legislation, like I mentioned, staff is recommending a support position on Senate Bill 71 by Senator Scott Wiener. This bill would make permanent a number of CEQA exemptions for environmentally beneficial transportation projects that are currently set to expire in 2030. These exemptions apply to projects like transit prioritization, pedestrian and bike facilities, and zero-emission bus, rail, and ferry infrastructure. The bill would not only eliminate the 2030 sunset for many of these exemptions, it would also expand them to cover Tier 4 or cleaner locomotives, as well as microtransit, paratransit, and ferry planning and projects. This change aligns closely with SANDAG's legislative goals, particularly our focus on securing technical tools and streamlining CEQA and NEPA processes to accelerate the implementation of a regional plan. The bill has been referred to the Assembly Natural Resources Committee, and it is pending a hearing date. By supporting this bill, SANDAG would actively advocate for its passage, including submitting letters of support, participating in hearings, and collaborating with the author and stakeholders for its passage. Next, staff is recommending an opposed unless amended position on Senate Bill 79, also authored by Senator Scott Wiener. This complex proposal would set statewide zoning standards around qualifying transit stops, categorizing them into tiers based on the frequency and type of transit service. These standards set maximum allowable building heights, densities, and floor area ratios, overriding most local zoning controls within half a mile of those stops. For context, under this bill's provision, we expect most of our San Diego trolley and sprinter stations would fall under Tier 2, while coaster and ferry stops, as well as 900 other designated major transit stops across the region would likely fall under Tier 3. Under this bill, local jurisdictions would be required to allow substantial housing development by right and with limited public input around these areas. While we strongly support more housing near transit and already plan for 80% of future residential and job growth in high transit areas, we have concerns with this bill in its current form. Specifically, it significantly preempts local land use authority by passing existing planning and community engagement processes. It places additional administrative burdens on jurisdictions and regional governments which may not have resources to comply. And it could also discourage local jurisdictions from enhancing or expanding transit service if doing so triggers these state-imposed zoning mandates. An aversion by local jurisdictions to expand transit service in their communities could have long-term unintended consequences for our region's ability to meet greenhouse gas targets and achieve key elements of the regional plan. We are recommending an opposed unless amended position. That means we'll notify the author and request modifications, specifically to make local participation incentive-based or opt-in rather than mandatory. This concludes our item. We're glad to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, team. Let's take public comments now, and then we'll go to member questions and comments.
Sure, we have 3 in person right now. It's Cesar Javier, followed by Truth. This is on item 5.
Cesar Javier. Digesting from the presentation and from the literature we have on hand, we discern forces intersecting, such as the forthcoming zero-emission high-tech mobility. This calls for a kind of flexibility, and that is the only option. We have to balance what we have started and that of the incoming changes as far as infrastructure, as far as money or budget, as far as the culture that has already been set up. The vision has already been casted and projected at a certain time or period. And here comes something new that we have to abide or to respond to. This is the challenge. And I think SANDAG has the capability to address these changes. And this is what we call sustainability, if I would use that word. We have to continue that vision, not only on mobility, circulation, but all aspects on or the centerpiece of man's decent home, mobility, and suitable surroundings. I think
Thank you,
that is
Caesar.
the
Your
main
time
goal.
has
Thank
expired.
you.
Next is truth, followed by allegedly Audra.
I recommend opposing all Scott Wiener bills by default. Don't even read them. They're like drugs. Just say no. Because it's amazing that such political criminals can waive the California Environmental Quality Act for their social engineering. They'll do anything to implement bus-only lanes, public transit, and dangerous fire-prone EVs. And they don't care about the cancer-causing lithium fire fumes. So no to SB 71 for the electric toxic junk with non-recyclable batteries being given automatic environmental waivers. SB 79, this extremist bill is the only type of thing that wakes some of you guys up, and that's because nobody anywhere wants expensive stack of packs everywhere, and it's the rare issue that gets people to finally pay attention to meetings and start initiating recalls. But you guys are all NIMBYs. There's no such thing as incentivizing for anything in the state. It's all mandated, comply, and die. Hence why people are fleeing to the free states. Using scam carbon taxes, Newscom wants to dump another $1 billion towards a high-speed rail to permanent debt, while cutting almost $3 billion to the transit programs that actually work. I suggest SANDAG opposing the Dud Bill SB 10 from the Dud Steve Padilla. And the only thing we should exchange with Mexico is that extra 10 million gallons of blended sewage that the IBWC said will be processing for them, as usual. The Appropriations Committee had 666 measures on its suspense file. That might be a sign. So is the MAGA Act bill calling a rail the Trump train. Apparently, Trump's big debt bill includes a $250 tax on EVs and a $100 tax on hybrids. That's going to be fun. It's true that there's already a few transit disincentives for cities. A few no longer want a trolley due to MTS's lack of security measures. So I like Sean Duffy's words on the importance of public transit safety, which SANDAG and MTS have failed to address. And the notice of a funding opportunity says that agencies like SANDAG have to stop their unlawful DIE and inefficient, dangerous EVs and or the county sanctuary policy or lose money. And I say about time. I'm in full support of that. I want this agency defunded. Sorry, thanks.
Next is allegedly Audra, followed by Paul the Bold online.
All right, Blair, do some educating research and understand I said fraudulent visas, and there's issues with the restaurant that potentially this could have come from 2019, and these people had labor judgments against them, and so they should actually be arrested too, just like the others who are aiding and abetting. Jill LaCava, I look forward to seeing you in a jail cell, like along with many others. Anywho, so this is interesting that you're engaging in litigation against Trump, or that that's happening, because we love to spend the people's money to fight things that you shouldn't be. And tech improvements, it's interesting because with this big, beautiful bill or whatever, there's going to be more AI. And it's funny because the county of San Diego is going to be spending $1 billion on AI with a $300,000 little test to see if there's any problems with it. So as you guys are sitting here and thinking that this technology is so great, are you excited to live in China? That's what we're headed towards. And with all of this stuff happening around the nation with the riots and stuff, that's pushing us into this digital prison. And it's terrifying to think about, because the only reason people have a problem with ALPR right now is because the illegal immigrants have a problem with it. When it's been told that this is mass surveillance, that it's a track and trace, it doesn't help you. As Musgrove knows, the LPR in your city didn't help anybody when they were hit by a car and it was a hit and run. And so it's really sad to see that we're spending money on this and it only matters when there's people who are here illegally and all of a sudden have a problem with it. But the way that we're headed with using AI and Palantir, like that should not be something that you guys are working towards. That should be something that you're fighting against, because we're going to have cameras everywhere. I mean, they already track us with our phones. How much more tracking and tracing needs to happen to keep you in a digital prison and make sure you can't go anywhere? And maybe your carbon footprint is going to be too much.
Your time has expired. Next is Paul the Bold online, followed by Patrick.
Hi, Paul Bold. Anything by the Wiener Dog Man from a Broken City, I disapprove of. SB 71, the CEQA exemptions, is being held in committee. I think it's a bad idea to streamline CEQA down further anyway, and reject the bill. SB 79 on housing is being held in Rules Committee. That at least covers what you should be doing, which is transportation, not housing. I believe the deadline for passing them this year has passed. Don't you have something better to do? And if SB 10 can give another 100 mil from successful programs to high-speed rail, maybe it can go to Bakersfield or North Reading. You know, it's a crazy idea. You should oppose it. And the opposed unless amendment recommendation for SB 79 is weird. It almost sounds as if the writer wrote a summary rather than the actual text. What if the amendments are confusing? I mean, it would be better to say what you want. Mean what you say what you mean. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Patrick, followed by Blair Beekman.
Good morning, SANDAG Executive Committee. I urge you to support SB 79 or at the least take no position on it. This bill helps working families who live near transit while giving cities the flexibility to create their own housing plans that allow for the density as well. We've spent billions on trolley lines and cities still zone stations for strip malls instead of housing that we desperately need in this region. We're under an affordability crisis. Teachers and nurses, staff members that we depend on in this economy can't afford homes near where they work. They're driving from Riverside or from far away, which adds additional wear and tear to our roads, as well as is a lower quality of life for those folks who have hour-plus commutes. It also raises the cost of our services in this community because we have to pay more to demand those workers' time and stay competitive in the regional economy. SB 79 allows 4 to 6-story buildings near major stations in our communities. These are not monstrous high rises, as some would have you believe. This is the sort of missing middle housing that we need to make transit work. Today, there are countless trolley stations and other transportation stations that have massive underutilized parking lots adjacent to them. I live in El Cajon, near the El Cajon transit station. That one's been trying to be developed for years. We need to do more to allow those communities to have the housing and other services near transit that they need. SB 79 allows for that across the region without allowing roadblocks to be unnecessarily put up locally. I urge this committee to reject the recommendation of oppose and instead to support or take no position on SB 79.
Thank you. Next is Blair Beekman, followed by Saad Assad.
Hi, thank you. Blair Beekman. Thanks for this item. Really good reports from the federal level. It's nice to hear that, and nice state reporting too. I have to better understand the transit item. I just heard this for the first time, and I'm going to have to learn more about it. Thank you for its information for this informative item. To quickly offer, I've offered kind of previously, my feelings on state and federal law and what California can be working on at a state level and at the local level, what really we can be doing in the city of San Diego and other cities in the county of San Diego. I feel the upcoming protest this Saturday is a concept. When these protests tend to happen and involve North County, there tends to be a conservative element in how it was created and its funding. I think the reason why this is happening is to create a pressure relief valve for what was some beginning work that was happening in LA that we do question. But the San Diego event—
Point of order, Chair. I have no idea what he's talking about related to this matter. He keeps talking about the protests. This is the second matter on the agenda where he's talked about protests unrelated to the agenda matter.
I'm talking about it as a state and local issue. Is that possible to talk about? May I continue?
That was a point of order to the chair, not to the speaker.
And I have offered
speaking about federal protests, conservative elements, things in Los Angeles. It's not appropriate under the rules.
Blair, if you could please connect it to the federal or state issues that are before us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me see how to do that. I admit I was going off a bit. I can admit that. And as I previously said, I've said what I've needed to say pretty much. And so I'll just hold at this point and thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Saad Assad, followed by Paul Jameson.
Good morning, board members. I'm here to respectfully ask you to reconsider your opposition to SB 79. First, I want to note the staff analysis on Tier 3 stops seems inaccurate and is worth discussing with the author's office. But moving on to the substantive of it, taxpayers have invested billions in transit infrastructure across our region, from Santee's Trolley Station to Solana Beach's Coaster Station to San Marcos Sprinter Station. These are major public investments that should generate maximum return for our communities. SB 79 ensures we get that return. Right now, cities can take transit funding while only allowing strip malls and parking lots near those transit. This wastes taxpayer money by reducing ridership and forces working families, our teachers, government workers, nurses, to commute from increasingly distant areas. I understand concerns about local control. The SB 79 gives cities choices. You can follow state standards or create your own equivalent plans. Communities already planning thoughtfully would have flexibility. I also understand the preference for incentives, but look at the results. We already have incentives for housing near transit funding, whether it's through federal grants or bonus programs, yet many of our transit stations are not surrounded by homes. Cities simply pocket the money and ignore housing because there's no consequence for saying no. That's not good fiscal stewardship. If taxpayers are spending public money on transit, we should ensure development patterns that make those investments successful, especially before asking for more tax increases. SANDAG's regional plan calls exactly for this coordinated growth. You can go through entire different plans. SANDAG produced a great study on transit-oriented development in 2015. This is exactly what SANDAG would want. SB 79 gives the region the tools to implement smart planning while protecting taxpayer money. Thank you.
Next is Paul Jameson, followed by Nick Adams.
Hi, I'd like to express my support for SB 79, which would overcome local barriers to transit-oriented development. It's also consistent with SANDAG's goal of building 80% of housing near transit. So I'm really disappointed that this board is considering opposing SB 79 unless amended. A question for the staff report authors: SB 79 allows transit agencies to develop land they own or have an easement on, correct? That certainly seems relevant to SANDAG in this discussion. Was there a reason why that was not mentioned in the report? And then, since the staff report was requested, I believe, by the Santee and San Marcos board members, was there an effort to try to justify opposition to reduce local control? Because we've kind of underbuilt housing by tens of thousands of units for decades in San Diego and in the county, precisely because of local control. An example would be the Santee Trolley Square. It's still surrounded by retail parking lots instead of dense housing. But the recent 2025 Town Center specific plan proposes densities of just 2 to 36 dwelling units per acre. And that's far below SB 79's like 60 to 100 or even more dwelling units per acre. So there's examples like this of just bad land use planning that local municipalities have done all over San Diego County. I understand that you're under intense pressure from housing opponents to prioritize things like parking and reducing congestion over the human right to housing. But at this point, Californians are leaving the state in huge numbers because of affordability issues. We need to acknowledge that, unfortunately, local control has failed and state intervention is required on housing to meet our state housing requirements. And then finally, the report's concerned that municipalities would avoid establishing new transit routes that would activate density mandates. The Santee and San Marcos board members have been some of the loudest advocates for freeway widening over expanding transit. So it's sort of a disingenuous concern given their opposition to past transit proposals. We just need our elected leaders to lead on transit expansion. Thanks.
Next is Nick Adams, followed by our last public comment of Consuelo.
Hello, I want to express my support for SB 79, and I believe that this board should support it as it would improve transit-oriented development around the region and improve housing production across the area. I think that the concerns that of the report around the municipalities not building transit are overblown, and I think that it's another area where people that don't want to build housing are going to try to find any way to do it. And I think that this is an area where SANDAG can truly lead in the region and put itself forward in terms of supporting growth and progress for the entire region. So thank you.
Our last public comment is by Consuelo. Consuelo, go ahead. Consuelo. You there? Sorry, no connection, Chair. Sorry.
Okay, very good. All right. I want to thank our staff for the presentation and the staff report, and I want to thank our speakers. I think that what we're all trying to accomplish here is make housing more affordable for more and place it in the areas where we have transit. We all want that. And we've all around this table and everybody in the board, all of us have worked within the system that Sacramento came up with to achieve it. They gave us an allocation. We divided it up between us with the methodology. We all went back to our cities and we planned by zoning areas for affordable housing at considerable cost to our taxpayers. And we were very mindful about locating those near transit, making sure that we create livable communities at the same time, making sure that we have the planned infrastructure available, that we have service available, that we have schools, open space. All of those factors go into rational planning. And we all have created certified housing elements because of that process. Every one of the cities in the county around here. SB 79 ignores them, ignores all of them. This legislation takes land use authority from cities and gives it to transit agencies who have never had land use authority before, without allowing for any public engagement, without any environmental review, without compliance with the city or county's own objective zoning standards, or consideration for our state certified housing elements. SB 79 allows structures to be built within a half mile of a bus or train station. They assert this is matching housing with transit, but if you've read the bill, it doesn't say housing. It's because SB 79 does not require housing. It can be an office building, a Costco, a Chick-fil-A, or a car dealership. In the Losan corridor, along where I live in Solana Beach, those are all surrounded by residential areas, and they could be right in the middle of a residential neighborhood, a Chick-fil-A right next door to you. Wouldn't you just love that? And if there any of the development that were to occur was housing, it doesn't mandate that any of it be affordable. As a planning agency, we should stand for good, sound planning. Random scatterings of types of uses throughout our cities is not sensible planning. I'd also like to point out that we had in our plans, we can't force landowners to develop their property. We can encourage them with our policies, we can encourage them with our zoning, but that's all we can do. Even if the bill were to allow, were amended to allow only housing and some affordable, it still would not be the right tool for many cities in our region and the state. It's too much, it's too dense, it's too tall, and with the majority being market rate, which I'm reading as luxury, not the middle missing portion, this is what is keeping prices high. I don't know why this can't be understood. When land is upzoned, the property value becomes more expensive, which means rents will ultimately be higher. And again, only a handful of these new projects, if ever, are deeded restricted affordable. So I'm what's happening on the ground is very different than I think a lot of people are understanding. Upzoning, again, it allows more square footage on a lot, which makes it more expensive. And there's also not enough public subsidy dollars available for for-profit developers to take advantage of. So how do they subsidize the affordable units that they are allowed to, are forced actually to build? Remember, they're for profit, so they're not into just jumping into their profit. They raise the rents on the market rate units. I've said this before. So what happens is the surrounding area experiences a new comp, a new level of rents, and all other rents rise to meet that. We in my community and many around here, we've talked about it, we're losing working class families, we're losing people of color, we're losing our seniors, and it's all because rents have risen over the past 7 to 8 years, way more than they have in prior years because of the corporatization of buying existing land, including many of our naturally affordable older apartments, and redeveloping them to what they redevelop them for, which is luxury units. Again, go to apartments.com, look in your zip code, and you will see the new units are going for, in my city, $7,500 for a 2-bedroom, $6,000 for a 1-bedroom. And it's going to take a hell of a long time for those to trickle down to be affordable to the $2,300 they were before those were demolished to put in the $6,000 to $7,500 ones. So I'd also like to point out that we have other tools, such as our certified housing elements that we worked hard on that would create more housing. Again, we can't force people to build. We also have the density bonus law, which offers greater amounts of density for corresponding increases in affordable housing. SB 79 undermines this. It's very difficult for me to ever find a way to support this bill. It also absorbs properties we cities expected to yield some affordable units with maybe office buildings or, whatever else is going to be there. So that brings up the question for cities, is that going to put us into the no net loss category where we then have to go back and rezone more land? I mean, there's so many questions about that. I am very much in favor of an oppose on this. I will support the oppose unless amended to opt in, because there could be some cities in the state that might find this to be a useful tool. I can't really see that most of the cities in the San Diego region are going to work for that. Again, I'm along the Los San corridor. Our coaster frequencies are 45 minutes to 2 hours. They go one direction. You cannot use transit to live, do your errands, and so forth. And what we also just saw, an article in Cal Matters came out to show that the transit-oriented development, which are all luxury units, there is a decrease in transit ridership among those folks. The demographics of higher earnings are showing in the studies that they are not using them. And it's especially true for people who go to more than one place to work. If you go to one place to work and it happens to be along a coaster line, which is a few different places. There are more places along trolley lines, I get that, but along many places in our region, these overly tall, dense units are just not going to work. So I would support the staff recommendation and I'll make the motion to go there. Does anybody else have any comments? Mayor Duncan, Mayor Minto, and then.
Thank you. I appreciate your eloquent comments. I do disagree, though, however, with supporting the staff recommendation that oppose unless amended. I think the amended language is too vague, and the bill is so fatally flawed that I cannot support it under any circumstance. When I look at things like for development further than 1/4 mile, but within 1/2 mile of a tier 1 transit-oriented development stop, all of the following apply. A development may be built up to 65 feet high or up to the local height limit, whichever is greater. So 65 feet, I don't even know why they say up to the local height limit, except for if they want it taller than 65 feet, which they can do without this bill. A local government shall not impose any maximum density standard of less than 100 dwelling units per acre. But there's other density bonus things they can apply for. I mean, that's crazy. Think about a 60-foot high development lining whatever street you want in your city. One size does not fit all. The opt-in, it's so easy to do this if that's what a city wants that I cannot support this bill, whatsoever. I'd either ask for a friendly amendment to oppose this or do a substitute motion to approve the Senate Bill 71 as the staff supported, or and to then oppose Senate Bill 79. Thank you.
That's a substitute motion. Do we, Mayor Minto, would you like to go next? I know Cal Cities has an oppose and CalCog is looking at this also.
And I'm unaware, and just if I may finish, just one quick comment. I'm not aware of any cities that support it. There may be some, but I'm not aware of them. I mean, you look at the city of San Diego and what they just had to do to start ratcheting back their ADU situation. This is you can have speakers come on and talk about whatever about housing, but this is communist socialist type.
Okay. Let's go on to Mayor Minto.
Vanity, in my opinion.
Let me save yourself.
Okay, first I just want to make a point of order because you made a motion.
Yeah.
There was no second, so.
Well, I don't think anybody had a chance for a second, but I would ask for a second, Chair, on my substitute motion or on your motion. Yeah, I understand. You're right. Apologize.
I'm open to either. Let me just put it that way. So, Mayor Minto, where do you
Okay.
want to go with this? Why don't we suspend the rules a teeny bit and not get a second until we have a discussion and see where we're going?
Okay. For me, I was a little disturbed by some of the comments because I didn't hear any kind of discussion about, well, my experience is I'm a planner, I'm an engineer, I'm a whatever, so I know better than our engineers and planners. That just to walk in the door and say, I think you should do this because it's a great idea, just doesn't resonate with me. I like to hear somebody's experience and whatnot. And I know that in my city, there was one person who spoke about my Santee Trolley Center. And essentially, we could probably put close to 10,000 living units right there. And we would never be able to do it because we would end up in court, over almost every single thing that would have to be there, with the exception that this bill probably would keep us out of court because I think it prohibits you from being sued because we didn't make the, we can't even act on it. So I don't know. I think it's crazy because we talked earlier about the oppose unless amended. And I hate to say this, but the more I think about it, I think they need to we should just oppose it and say, rewrite this bill or something because there's too much vagueness in it. So that's kind of
where you're leaning. Okay, Councilor.
And be honest with you, the speakers drove me in that direction.
Very good. Council President LaCava.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of thoughts in addition to what you said. I'm actually in support of oppose unless amended. And my logic is there's a culture in Sacramento that if there's any legislation that comes forward that has the word housing in it, it's going to have broad-based support. And if there's any opportunity for us to have a seat at the table, we have to express some willingness to engage in the conversation. And I think it's still a faint hope, even if we take the opposed unless amended attitude. But I have seen over the years in my personal experience that when you just come out and say, I don't like it, nobody listens to you anymore and they go off and do what they're going to do. And I think this is likely to have the momentum
to get through Sacramento because nobody in Sacramento wants to even hint that they are not pro-housing. And I think that's a culture that we have to help change and get them to pivot. And, you know, the point to the public, this is part of the legislative process for people to have their voices. And I think opposed unless amended is a way to keep our voice in the conversation. It does have the word opposed. I think it's unlikely that we're going to get the legislator to change it, but it keeps us at the table. The other part that I was supportive of oppose unless amended, because Sacramento also has a culture of waking up every morning going, let's come up with another bill, and not actually saying what we've done so far doesn't seem to be working. Let's go look at what we've done and try to fix the problems. If you want to know what this bill looks like, come to the city of San Diego, look at our Marina corridor that has 4 trolley stations. We upzoned it like crazy. We blew out the height restrictions that were in that area. And there is no development because that's not the issue. There are other fundamental structural problems with the reason that we're not building housing, and Sacramento doesn't want to take those up because they're difficult. To the point that our chair made about where we really struggle is not the market rate housing. It is really the moderate and the low income housing. And that is a money problem from a very simplistic point of view, because nobody can afford to build that unless they get subsidies, and there's just not enough subsidies going forward. I'm very concerned about some of the rhetoric coming out of DC, who is a major funding, a source of funding for low-income housing. This bill doesn't really incentivize it in a way that you can kind of argue a trade-off. That bothers me going forward. But I'll kind of close here because I could ramble on for quite a long time. And I think I'm a founding member of the ME Democrats. And I think I have almost a near perfect record for voting for pro-housing things in the city of San Diego. And I really am not going to close, but I'm grateful for the North County Transit District, for MTS and the work they're doing around our trolley stations. And they're very thoughtful and understand, let's change parking lots into housing, but do it in a thoughtful, integrated way. So I'm grateful for their actions going forward. I would be really, I don't think I could support a motion just to oppose, but would urge my colleagues to do the oppose unless amended to keep us at the table. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
And before I go to Mayor Sanchez, I'd just like to say that, you know, I am a strong oppose on this. And the reason that I would go for the opt-in is the reason that the council president mentioned. And that is it keeps us in the discussion. And there might be, you know, maybe Los Angeles, maybe Riverside would want this, and it might work for them. But it doesn't work, I think, in our region, and I think none of us would be opting in. And I don't see the harm of saying that we opt in with, you know, very strong language in whatever letter that we send, that we're opposed to it for a lot of, for many, many reasons. So I would keep with the opt-in just for effectiveness in Sacramento. I've been up there. I've discussed this with folks. And as the council president said, the culture up there is very much to help each other get their bills passed, and it's very much all about, you know, showing that they're doing something for housing, even though they're not. What I'd rather see is something to save older homes so that we can preserve those naturally affordable. What I'd rather see is more public subsidy dollars so that they don't have to use market rate rents to subsidize them. What I'd rather see is to give cities back our bargaining power so that we can work directly with developers and get more affordable units and, you know, get more livable communities and make things happen. But it's not, but if we want to continue to have this discussion up there and be effective, I think we have to remain reasonable in terms of our expectations of what's happening in there. But we're hearing, I mean, it was surprising that it passed the Senate. It was shocking that it passed the Senate. Nobody thought it would pass the Senate. It did by 1 vote. And what we're hearing is that it's got a clearer run to a yes in the Assembly. So I would like to be able to stay together and in the conversation. So I think we have a motion and a second for support 71, oppose unless amended to an opt-in. We'll be very clear about how we say that. And then I'll go to Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did not read into it a ability to opt out, which is really my biggest concern, because what happens when they start talking about amendments, we end up losing. I do feel that we need to have a very, very strong oppose, and I would argue for that. I understand that it was actually heading towards defeat in the Senate, but that I always fail to remember how to pronounce his name, Wiener Weiner, argued like heck during breaks to convince people that he was going to come up with amendments that were not there. There's just, oh, we're going to come up with amendments. And that's my concern, is that what we think we have now will change. And we in the city of Oceanside, we've updated our general plan. We're in the process of approving that, increasing densities along major transportation corridors. We've exceeded our RENA numbers for market rate housing. And you know what's happening in our city? We are losing affordable housing units because of it. You know, absolutely, you know, displacing Oceanside residents and making it more difficult to build affordable. Because if we can do 5-6 story buildings in our urban core with maybe 59, 60 units, we can actually reach our numbers for affordable housing. But we would need more money for that, to at least provide that gap funding. All the things that have happened in Sacramento, getting rid of redevelopment, you know, increased density bonus. We don't have any more in lieu fees. We're zero. So we can't move forward anymore with affordable. And what do we get with the 15%? We can't even provide a list to the developer of our needs, because they can decide whoever they want, whoever they're related to or whatever. I don't see that we are getting rid of the maximum 7 stories in the amendments or the increased densities. And as you know, we already have density bonus with unlimited waivers, unlimited impacts. Sorry, you city, those costs are passed on to the city. By right, we need to fight for local control. That language that's in there is something that we desperately need to fight back against. We're displacing our workforce housing with unattainable housing, and they are being forced to relocate. We actually, despite all this, you know, density bonus, we are actually very close to achieving our housing and economic development goals. Look at Oceanside between 2000 and now. We will destroy South O, something that actually attracts tourists and that industry, right? Because all of a sudden everything's going to be 7 stories, and the charm of our cities disappears. The diversity, as you indicated, the longevity, this character that we've developed over time. So I understand your willingness, or our willingness, to want to work with them to find, you know, more actual solutions rather than just, you know, language that tells some people or gives false hope, because that's really what's happening here, false hope. So
Mayor
I'm
Voss, you're the
hoping
swing
that we
vote.
can say a straight no, and why, explain why, and what the impacts are here. Maybe, like you said, it does, would work in LA, but once we increase these densities, where is the open space that they need to be able to recreate? Because it's gone in Oceanside. We're built out. We don't have whatever open space we have, that's it. So this is, I'd say this is going to be bankrupting our cities to address all of those impacts, because they don't have to address any impacts.
So
Let's
my-
fight against by right.
Okay, my goal is to get a majority of us to vote to oppose this, oppose it, whatever way we want to oppose it. Mayor Voss, would you please weigh in on this?
Can I do a point of order? I'm going to do a point of order. I know you said let's suspend the procedure, whatever, for a little while we chat, but then now you have a motion and a second. So I'll renew my substitute motion, and as we go forward, ask if we can get a
I've
second.
called on Mayor Voss, who hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah, and I've made a point of order, which is 100% procedurally appropriate, and you're actually required under the rules to rule on my point of order.
Well, why don't we just be kind and have a discussion and have Mayor Boss weigh in, and then we'll call for the vote on your substitute or whatever motion.
I'm happy to second the substitute motion. I oppose 79 with every fiber of my being.
Thank you. All right. So the motion would be to support 71 and oppose, flat out oppose 79. Right? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Unopposed? No. Okay, so that passes 4-1. And we will get that letter out, and we'll make sure that we include all the comments and information that we have shared with the public here today. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the consent agenda. Michael, do we have any public comments on the consent agenda? Mindful of the time, it's 10:33. We're moving into board time.
We do. We have 3 in person and 3 online, Chair. First up will be Cesar Javier, followed by allegedly Audra.
Cesar Javier, I am about to lose my air. To me, minutes is something very important as we find for solution in our community issue or problem on toxicity. We have seen our name. Thank you, SANDAG. But beneath that name, Purita and Cesar are dreaming of a solution. And that minute, here we are. Hopefully, we will be able to crack that hard ball. On the review of that draft board agenda is excellent. It went through review repetitively, purposively, and we are comfortable with that. Chairmanship is alive. Thank you, SANDAG.
Next is allegedly Audra, followed by Truth.
Okay, talking about your draft agendas, I think you guys need to really bring forward some kind of study or whatnot on geoengineering because you guys care so much about the planet and saving it, then you would be concerned about weather modification, weather warfare, cloud seeding, geoengineering, things that have been admitted to that people want to pretend don't exist. The storm that was here in January of 2024, they were cloud seeding at the Santa Ana watershed and doing it before, during, and after the storm, which led to flooding. The problem is that you guys didn't keep up with the infrastructure, so it led to more damage. But if you actually care about the planet, then this should concern you because they are spraying toxic nanoparticulates in the air, not only human DNA, heavy metals, graphene, a bunch of things that should concern you, that are very detrimental to our health and the environment because it's nanothermite that gets sprayed out, and then the fires that happen spread way quicker because they ignite just like that. So when you guys want to sit here and act like you care about the planet, you really need to do your due diligence and bring forward some kind of a study. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, and we're good. But if I'm right, then you guys are actually doing a disservice to the people by saying it doesn't exist. There are other states that are going forward and saying that they are banning this type of warfare. So literally, if you care about the planet, this is something that you should have already done. It's not a conspiracy. It happens. They've even talked about it in Dubai. So I don't know what more you guys need, but if you do care, do something about it because that will stop a lot of the problems that we have. Quit ignoring it.
Thank you. Next is Truth, followed by Blair Beekman online.
For the record, I'm also happy to see David, but I almost didn't recognize him. Item 2, the minutes say that at the May 9th meeting, the Feld County was MIA again, or was Joel just missed on roll call because maybe he was at the catering table? It's usually his first priority. It also said staff is or was analyzing public enemy number one, Scott Wiener's SB 79. I actually heard that it's on its way to passing as expected. But thank you, Esther, for finally bringing some cheese or meat to the table, because that term fight back is dead on. No compromise anytime, ever, on anything, on any rights at all. Democrats need to fight the state like you say you want to fight Trump. Then we'd have some progress. And unlike some people, Scott Wiener did not pay me to speak today from San Francisco. Item 3, the June 27th agenda. The procurement process sounds fun to discuss, and hopefully there's going to be a whole section on sole source contracts and how to avoid past and current decisions. The July 11th agenda, the audit plan. I am expecting charges filed against those who made it happen to begin with. And I'm really looking forward to talking about analogy relier Mario. He's like a cake with layers. That's my analogy. And I did forget one story to say, and that was a worker at the retreat hotel said, I seem like I'm part of the group. That's you guys. And I told her, no, I just know everybody. Thank you.
Next is Blair Beekman online, followed by Paul the Bold.
Hi, Blair Beekman. On your consent calendar, you have items for upcoming draft agendas that are about funding for your projects, upcoming projects that I think the Lausanne corridor issues will be a part of, if I could quickly speak to that. I've been learning a lot since your public meeting on the Lausanne corridor at the Del Mar Fairgrounds. Thank you. I'm learning the most northern route track is easily the best. I mean, it helps environmental concerns. It helps the housing concerns of the area. The curve of the track, I don't think trains can go much over 90 miles an hour. They'll have to go more like 50. And it may just simply be a slight danger to it. So that has to be considered, but overall, it really seems like a better idea. The Truth has offered some really good ideas about trolley service, creating a trolley. Maybe, the train can stop by Oceanside and people can take a trolley, from Oceanside down to Solano Beach and work that sort of system, and from Solano Beach into San Diego even. I think that's an idea worth considering. So a real good luck in that effort to better understand that issue, because high-speed rail, I learned at the meeting, it's pretty clear that high-speed rail is not going to go through Solano Beach and Del Mar in the future. They're really going to be focused on it going through Escondido and Miramar area and then come back into the San Diego coastline. So yeah, we need to be clear on those sort of points. I think it's important. And to wrap up, I just feel that from protests comes good rules and good policy practices of law. And I hope our protests in San Diego this Saturday work towards those good ends. I think they will and can. And good luck to good law efforts we can be developing. Thank you.
Next is Paul the Bold, followed by our last speaker, Consuelo. I'm sorry. Yeah, Paul the Bold, go ahead.
Yeah, review of agendas. June 22nd, I'm surprised to see Procurement 101 on the agenda. Actually, it should probably be the next meeting when the procurement team is here. But it's interesting that it comes after another awful audit or two. July 11th, I'm hoping for more than just an audit correction plan. After the last set of bad audits, there should be an update every meeting on the status of prior audit recommendations, improvements, and new issues, like whether there are any plans for new audit. Gold star to Mario in his performance review for an improved climate at SANDAG. 2, meeting minutes. Again, the list of names like the Oscars and who did what on the consent agenda, which was consented to. No surprise there. No actual summaries of what anyone said. When you omit details, it is one way of dissing the public to make them spend their precious time listening to tapes or searching records to see what actually went on. There should be a summary right there in the minutes. Please give us a meaningful minutes. not seconds, minutes. Thanks.
Next is our last public comment by Consuelo. Consuelo, you're unmuted. Go ahead. Consuelo? Sorry, no connection, Chair.
Very good. Any member comments? May I have a motion to approve consent, please? May I have a second? Very good. Please, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, that passes. The motion passes. This concludes our meeting. The next executive committee meeting will be July 11th at 9 a.m. This meeting is adjourned. We'll be taking a 5-minute break. Unfold.